Welcome. Let's know about the Britishers or Europeans' demand on indigo plant. The indigo plant grows primarily in the tropics. By the 13th century, Indian indigo was being used by cloth manufacturers in Italy, France, and Britain to dye cloth. However, only small amounts of Indian indigo reached the European market and its price was very high. European cloth manufacturers therefore had to depend on another plant called wood plant to make violet and blue dyes. Being a plant of the temperate zones, wood was more easily available in Europe. It was grown in northern Italy, southern France, and in parts of Germany and Britain. Worried by the competition from indigo, wood producers in Europe pressurized their governments to ban the import of indigo. Cloth dyers, however, preferred indigo as a dye. Indigo produced a rich blue color, whereas the dye from wood was pale and dull. By the 17th century, European cloth producers persuaded their governments to relax the ban on indigo import. The French began cultivating indigo in Saint Domingue in the Caribbean islands, the Portuguese in Brazil, the English in Jamaica, and the Spanish in Venezuela. By the end of the 18th century, the demand for Indian indigo grew further. Britain began to industrialize and its cotton production expanded dramatically, creating an enormous new demand for cloth dyes. Between 1883 and 1789, the production of indigo in the world fell by half. Cloth dyers in Britain now desperately looked for new sources of indigo supply. Now the summary of indigo demand and cultivation. Indigo and opium cultivation encouraged by the British. Point number 2. In the 13th century, merchants in France, Italy, and Britain were using Indian indigo to dye cloth. It was the preferred dye because only indigo produced a rich blue color. By the 19th century, India was the world's largest supplier of indigo. Price of Indian indigo was very high and only a limited quantity reached Europe. The substitute of indigo in Europe. Indigo, a tropical plant, could not be grown in Europe. Search was on for a substitute to replace indigo. Wood plant was discovered by European manufacturers to make blue and violet dyes. These plants grew easily in Europe. However, dye from the wood plant was dull and pale. Finally, Europeans began cultivating indigo in their tropical colonies in the Caribbean and South America to obtain cheap dyes. So, students or viewers, these are the indigo demand by the Britishers and Europeans. आपको ये हमारा जो वीडियो आपका पढ़ाई के लिए बहुत अच्छा लगा तो आप कृपा करके कमेंट्स बॉक्स पे कमेंट्स करें और सब्सक्रिप्शन डिस्क्रिप्शन ये बॉक्स पे आप हमारा जो ये इसी टॉपिक्स का जो आंसर्स एंड क्वेश्चंस को वहाँ पढ़े और आप उससे मदद ले लीजिए, आपको जो अच्छा लगे।